Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk, NBC Sports, joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Mike Gill, Eitan Shander, Ryan Rothstein in Atlantic City. Kurt, what's happening, man?
It's good to talk to you guys. Please keep Eitan in line, by the way.
We've got him in check over here.
Too
He's
late.
in the corner, man. We've got him in a corner.
Kurt knows me too well. Too late.
Kurt, we've a lot of talk about Philly and Boston. They both ended the season, or Boston ended Philly season. You and I talked a lot about them, and the conversation in the offseason was, man, Boston's head and shoulders better than Philly is right now. They got Kyrie, they got Gordon Hayward. People were kind of panicking here, but how close are these two teams as we enter the new season?
I still think Boston is the better team. By the way, heading into the season and tonight, I want to warn Sixers fans now. Every team that comes back from China is sluggish for the first couple weeks of the season at least. Every team's owner loves the idea of doing it until they do it, and then they watch how their team responds. If you were to get the Warriors guys to talk about it last year, like, they think that was part of the problem with their season, like just getting off to a sluggish start and kind of the malaise over that team. So just be warned that you might see some uglier performances than you'd hope early in the season. I still think Boston is a deeper team. I think that their foundation is a little better. I've got questions about Philadelphia, not defensively, because I think they're going to be locked down on that end. I even picked Joel to win Defensive Player of the Year, but there's not enough, Ilyasova and Bellinelli the second half of the season mattered, and I think that I'm really curious about where the shooting comes from, because I'm not sure that Fultz is there yet with the confidence, and I just think that there's more questions to answer as they try to fit this thing together than on the other side. I think Boston, although as bad as they looked in the preseason, I think that their pieces fit together a little more cleanly right now.
Yeah, I understand the concern about Ilyasova because they didn't really address that. Mike Muscala's not it from a scoring standpoint.
Fine.
But
he's fine, and I think Fultz will come along. Obviously, the bet's on Fultz on that.
Yeah, but what I would ask you, and a little bit more of a specific, is while Wilson Chandler is not lights out like Marco Bellinelli can be, is he not the more complete player with not losing enough on offense to be concerned?
A little, if you can keep him healthy.
Welcome to Philadelphia.
Exactly. I like Wilson Chandler as a role player. I think he can help there some. I think what has everybody kind of around the league kind of wondering about the shooting is just the new starting lineup, which I know is only for the first half in theory and what have you. It's just, where does that come from? Where does the shooting come from if you've got Fultz, Simmons, and Embiid out there at the same time? So I think Chandler helps a little. I think the bench will come along. I just think it's going to take them a little longer to fit all the pieces together as Brett Brown wants them to. I think Boston has a better idea of how to get there. Just they're discovering that, Gordon Hayward isn't all the way back yet. That's going to take some time, which shouldn't be a shock after that injury. But he's not just plug and play. And it's the same with Kyrie. They kind of developed this identity, and now you're like, no, Jason Tatum, you get the ball a little less and stuff like that. It's just going to take them a while to figure out where the level of water is.
Kurt, speaking of the bench, what are your thoughts on Fultz getting the starting nod and J.J. Redick now moving from the starting lineup to the bench? Is that something that you believe is sustainable long-term for the Sixers?
I doubt it, honestly, partially because the starting lineup last year was plus 21 per 100. Like, it is a ridiculously good lineup. JJ is a pretty good defender who obviously just wears people down with his his level of athleticism and his shooting, helps space the floor. I get why you're doing it though to start the season. I get this has become, looking at him shooting, I don't think it's about the actual jump shot right now with Fultz as much as the confidence level, right? It's just they've got to get him believing in it, and I think starting him, even if it's just for the first half, and giving him 5-7 minutes, whatever, at the start of the game, I think I get why that's a path to helping his confidence, and I get why you do it, but I'm not sure that by the time we get to the All-Star break that's still the trend.
I want to get your thoughts on Toronto, too. I mean, a lot of people not sure what to think about them. They did win the conference last year. They entered as the 1 seed, 59 games, and they swapped out DeMar DeRozan, a good, very good player, for one of the top 3 players in the league, maybe. So why shouldn't they be better this year?
I think they will be, honestly. Obviously, this comes with a caveat of are you getting top 5, top 3 Kawhi, right? I mean, that's really the question. Are you getting that Kawhi, or are you getting top 20 Kawhi? He's never going to be quite the same guy. if they're getting that MVP level, top 5 NBA player, Kawhi Leonard, then yes, because as much as I'm with you, like DeMar DeRozan's a good player. Like he's an all NBA player. Kawhi's just better at everything. He's a better scorer. He is better at getting to the rim. He gets to the line more. He's a obviously far superior defender. He seems to be moving well in the preseason. They're going to have to figure out the chemistry. The other question there, my question is almost less about Kawhi and more about what does Nick Nurse bring? Like, that's a gamble to change coaches in the middle of that and fire the coach of the year. I know they want somebody who's a little more innovative, a little more unpredictable on offense for the playoff run. We'll see how that goes, man. Rookie head coaches, Eitan obviously made no mistakes his first year on the job because he was kind of perfect. But the rest of us kind of fumble our way into figuring out how to do our jobs. And I got a feeling Nick Nurse is going to do some of that.
Yeah, it can only go downhill from here, Kurt. Trust me. Let me ask you on Fultz specifically, and be as specific as you'd like. In the preseason this year, working with Drew all summer, what did you see specifically? And you can only give us one thing, the biggest thing, that indicated change in Markelle Fultz, not only on the floor with his arm down to his feet, but also between his head.
I just think that he wasn't doing it as much with threes, but he was doing it when he'd drive and pull up from the elbow or whatever. There just wasn't hesitation anymore. There didn't seem to be – obviously the confidence isn't all the way back, but he wasn't in his own head at the same level. And I think having Drew in his corner all year long, by the way, that text conversation happens after every game like it does with all the good trainers. They watch the guys' games. They text them during the season. They say, hey, remember we were working on this. And know how to get through to him. I think that helps. I think it grows over the course of the year as Brett Brown shows confidence in him, as Embiid and Simmons and everybody else, as he starts to really believe in himself. But I think that was the biggest change to me because his skills were his skills, and his handle might be a little better. We didn't see enough of him to say, he had to distinctly get by X or Y outside of the jump shot and the confidence. There's less of a hitch in it. It looks smoother, but more importantly, he would dribble into it and take it with some confidence, and that's step one.
Kurt, I want to talk about Brett Brown because in the playoffs he got exposed a little bit. His inexperience got exposed.
Yeah.
The Sixers turned the ball over a lot last year, Embiid specifically in the post. And just as a team in general, what are you looking to see from Brett Brown's growth this year?
I think he's a really good coach who he's been to a couple of playoff games on the bench before. Those San Antonio teams who were on, if you remember, they weren't bad. They were pretty good. So I think that there are lessons to take away. But I think in terms of where to put guys in positions to succeed becomes and put them. It becomes harder as you go up the ladder, as you start to go against the really elite teams. It's one thing when Well, actually, I think Orlando could be kind of interesting and entertaining this year. But it's one thing when you see Atlanta or Orlando or whoever on them, and you can set up certain things. It's not that easy to set up stuff against Boston. That's a really good defense, and Al Horford is really smart, and they can switch everything, and they do this. And it's a different game against Boston and Houston and Golden State and the really elite teams. And I think that he started to learn about where his guys can start to fit into that. And by the way, what kind of growth there are. That's obviously one of the other things with the Sixers this year. It's just how much growth you're going to get out of Embiid and Simmons to start with. They're still young.
Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk, NBC Sports with us here, NBA Tonight. For you, Kurt, it's Philly, Boston, Toronto. That seems to be the conversation. Yeah. Is there another team in the East? Who's number 4? Does it matter? I like Indiana. I think they're not getting enough credit this offseason for what they've done with Oladipo, adding Evans. They're in the mix. Washington with the health now, the wall. They might be more intriguing. You got Antetokounmpo. I mean, the East seems that it's all those 3 teams, but are there other teams that should be in play?
Washington? You realize Dwight Howard's already hurt his butt, literally.
Isn't that a good thing, though, that Dwight's not on the floor?
I guess so, but you know what's going to happen there? They're going to win 43 games and be disappointing. But the team I think you've got to watch, honestly, Milwaukee. I mean, and it's not just that Giannis Antetokounmpo is, an MVP-level player potentially. Mike Budenholzer changes the game there. If you watch them during the during the preseason, they play much faster, but more importantly, they're spacing the floor. Obviously they've got bigs now, Ilyasova, but also Brook Lopez, who shoots a lot of threes, who can space, and that Giannis seems to be more comfortable with his jump shot and willing to take it, but more importantly, the lanes for him to get through are much wider. They're moving the ball. They're not acting like idiots on defense and being overly aggressive. He's going to put them in better positions to succeed, and I think I think that's your 4 seed and a potentially really dangerous playoff team just because of they have the superstar elite player, and now they can put their role guys in much better positions around him.
Kurt, settle a hypothetical here for us. We brought up earlier about trading, and it's completely hypothetical, but put yourself in the position of the Sixers here. Is there anybody in the NBA that you would trade Joel Embiid for? The only player that I said personally was Anthony Davis. Ryan said nobody.
Anthony Davis, with all due respect to Joel Embiid.
Well, it's a hypothetical. There's no knock on Embiid. It's just a hypothetical.
Yeah, he would be the one guy just because I think he can play 4 or 5, step out. He's just a little more fluid with his game. He can play a little more transition. And that, boy.
But there's nobody else, right?
Well, I mean, for one, long-term, no.
No, we're talking long-term.
Durant, yeah, long-term, no. I don't think. I'm trying to think of young players coming up. I wouldn't trade him for Towns. I wouldn't trade him for Jokic as much as I like those guys.
Not Devin Booker.
I don't know. No. I'm not as high on. Devin Booker's really good, and they had to sign him, and I look forward to the day he plays defense because
I love it. I love it.
But no, right? Davis is the only guy on that timeline right now where is Kevin Durant better if in a 1-year situation? Yes, but we're not. Long term, Davis is the only guy I'd trade for.
Hey, Kurt, when you look at the East, is Boston your favorite? Are you picking Boston to win the East?
Yeah, I have Boston 1. You're not going to like this. I have Toronto 2. I think Philly is right there and capable. We'll see how they develop over the course of the season. Again, it's like I want to say, well, man, they're going to miss Ilyasova and they're going to miss Bellinelli, and we'll see how Fultz goes, but I'm not totally sold yet and, on how far he's going to come. And I can raise up all these questions, but like I said, I think the other part of that is you have 2 top 15, I don't know how to break out the numbers, but 2 really great players in Simmons and Embiid who are young, and they are going to get better, and the team will get better because of that. So I think Toronto plug and play with Kawhi Leonard might be better during the regular season. We'll see where they stand come the playoffs, and Boston's still the team to beat. That is, they are going to defend. They are going to be versatile. They can switch everything. They can throw a lot of different looks at you, and they're just a team on the rise. And by the way, they still have, I forget the exact number, but I think it's 3,027 draft picks left.
Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk, NBC Sports, here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Sixers Celtics tip-off tonight, 8 o'clock on 97.3. Kurt, appreciate it, pal.
Take care, guys.